One of the less talked about downsides of pathological synth hoarding, besides financial distress and potential divorce obviously, is that at some point you're going to have to connect all this stuff together into a mixer or audio interface if you want to use all your gear at the same time. The problem with most mixers and audio interfaces with more than 2 outputs out there is that they can really ramp up in size and end up eating a massive amount of extremely valuable desk space. There's already a couple of small options available out there, like Teenage Engineering's TX6 or the Blue Box by 1010. Although these are tiny, they do have a couple of caveats, starting with the price point and other annoyances like having little 1/8 inch jacks instead of big boy 1/4 inch ones. Enter the Zoom Livetrak L6. A small, lightweight, battery-powered 10-channel mixer/recorder with MIDI capabilities that cost just a little over $300. I've been using the L6 for a couple of months now for live recording multiple synth setups and also as my main recorder for making YouTube videos. And I want to share my experience with you, both the good and the bad, beyond the spec sheet and from a real user's perspective. This video is not sponsored by Zoom, and I bought the L6 with my own money, so they have no idea I'm even making this. And as always, all opinions here are my own. This video does have a sponsor, the good folks at Analog Cases, but more on them a bit later. So what's all the fuss about? Well, the Zoom L6 packs a ton of punch for its size and price, let me tell you. It's a chunky little fella, and it would seem like Zoom set out to make use of every single centimeter available on the front panel, so no room is wasted here. The controls and buttons are big enough to read comfortably, and there's enough space between them that even if you have chubby fingers like me, you won't be accidentally knocking things around. There's also plenty of LED lighting, both for knob positions and backlit buttons, so plenty of visual feedback is available for those low-lit conditions. The case and buttons all feel very nice, but the knobs themselves feel decidedly like low-quality 3D printed plastic, and you can tell it's one of the places where they cut corners. But to be fair, they are responsive and they do get the job done. As for power supplies, the L6 can be powered by AA batteries for maximum portability, but it can also be powered by either one of its USB-C ports, one on the front panel and one on the side. I've used my L6 with pretty much every power option out there: AA batteries, a computer, my iPad. No issues whatsoever, and I hear that you can also use a 5-volt power bank as well as, obviously, a wall outlet. The USB-C port on the front is the only one of the two that transfers data, so you will need to plug it in there if you want to access recorded files or use the L6 as an audio interface. One of the L6's more interesting and useful features, for us synth heads especially, is the ability to record in 32-bit float resolution. In case you don't know why that's important, let me give you a brief explanation. Normally, when you record your audio in either 16 or 24-bit resolution, you have to be very mindful of the audio volume not to be too low or too loud. If it's too low, when you try to gain on it in post, you get a ton of artifacts and noise, like the pixelation you get when you try to zoom in on a low resolution picture. In 32-bit float, the high resolution allows for you to add tons of gain to a low volume recording without adding in artifacts or noise pixelation. On the other hand, if the incoming audio is too loud in 16 or 24, you can easily clip the recording and lose both the top and the bottom extremes of the wave. With 32-bit float, the resolution is so high that it can withstand higher volumes while still keeping that information useful, so you can rescue the waveform, or in other words, it's very difficult to clip your recording. As someone who continually struggles with gain staging and clipping when recording synths and vocals, this sounded like a godsend, at least on paper, so I was eager to try it out. After having used it for a couple of months, I can't say that it is truly useful, but it's not a silver bullet either. Though the audio levels can indeed be fixed in post, you should still try to get the levels right at the moment of recording, as you would usually do, since having to fix the levels in post adds a ton of unnecessary work, especially when recording voiceovers or YouTube videos like this one. I want to take a brief moment here to thank the sponsor of today's video, Analog Cases.
Are you tired of this happening to you? You choke on your morning banana and suddenly spill coffee all over your peak. You forgot you left your OPXY on the desk and accidentally squish it when you sit on it. You sneeze, drop your book, and break your Okos in half. Well, worry not, my accident-prone friend, because Analog Cases has you covered. Analog Cases makes custom cases for most popular synths and groove boxes, as well as desktop stands, performance stands, and my favorite, the TrackPack Backpack. Use my affiliate link in the description to get a discount on your next purchase.
Thank you so much, Analog Cases, for supporting me and other creators like me. Now, back to the video. Each channel has its own level control and panning. You can also send each channel to the internal effects, and you have 2 auxiliary sends that are meant to be used for external effects chains. Finally, you can also EQ each channel with a very straightforward 3-band equalizer, which allows you to move around the mid-frequency to further dial things in. The master out also features a compressor that can really add some power to that final output while preventing the mix from clipping. Channels 1 and 2 have XLR type inputs and phantom power available as well, so you can plug in a condenser mic like the Rode NT1 T1 for example. It is important to note though that while those channels do offer phantom power, there is no high Z option, so you can't run a passive guitar or bass guitar directly into the L6. And while we're on the subject of input volume levels, something that has annoyed me on the L6 are the gain knobs on the individual channels. I feel like they should be able to crank up the volume in the mix way more than they actually do. Take the Polybrute for example. It's not a particularly loud synth, and I'm used to having to add a bit of gain on any mixer or audio interface that I plug it into. On the L6, it always feels just a bit quiet, even when I fully crank up the gain on the channel I have it on. I'm not sure if this is a software thing that can be upgraded in a firmware update, but I love the gain knobs to offer just a few more dBs of boost per channel. On the other hand though, in regards to louder synths, I do have to say that the claim that it is hard to clip on this thing is not just marketing hype. I've used my Sub 37, which is one of the loudest synths I own, running into this thing pretty hot, and the L6 handled it beautifully. Same thing when singing high energy vocals, and it's really reassuring to know that you can just let loose in your performance and then still be able to salvage the recordings later on. As for the rest of the channels, I'm happy to say that we're dealing with 1/4 inch jacks all around. Channels 3 and 4 are stereo inputs that can also be set to 2 mono inputs each, and channels 5 and 6 can be either 2 stereo, 2 mono left inputs, or be set up to be USB audio inputs 1, 2, 3, and 4 from your DAW. Oh yeah, this thing can act as a fully featured audio interface and MIDI interface with your computer. Now, mixers being able to double as audio interfaces have become a pretty standard thing for a while now, but for them to also act as a MIDI bridge isn't, and I really wish my Livetrak 12 could have done that back in the day. The L6 features MIDI TRS Type A in and out ports that allow you to either control the Zoom L6 with an external MIDI controller, so you could adjust the levels and panning with faders for example, and it can also act as a MIDI through port, so you can use it to connect your DAW with older gear that does not have USB MIDI like the Octatrack. While on the subject of audio interface duties and compatibility issues, I have successfully used my L6 with Ableton on my MacBook and with GarageBand and Logic Pro on my iPad. I wasn't so lucky on the MPC though. Even though the MPC does recognize it as an audio interface, I do get a message saying that the recording rate is not compatible with it, which I assume has something to do with the 32-bit float resolution. Unfortunately, I did not find a way to lower the recording resolution of the L6, either on the device or on the companion app. Going further along the front panel, you have the sound pads section. These are non-velocity sensitive pads that can trigger a sound effect or an audio loop, and you can configure this to be a one-shot, loop, or a hold function on the companion app as well. I haven't really gotten much use out of these buttons, but I imagine they might come in handy if I was doing a live stream or a podcast, and I could trigger something like an intro and outro music and maybe a laugh track or something. And you have a few select onboard effects as well. Now, of course, they aren't the wildest thing you've ever heard, especially if you're a fan of Strymon or Chase Bliss, but they sound a lot better than they have any right to, especially at this price point. They do come in very handy in cases like when you want to add a bit of reverb to a vocal for reference without wanting to actually set up the final vocal effects chain. Also, the effects do have a few parameters that you can tweak in the companion app to spice them up a bit if you want to. Speaking about the effects, it might be useful to keep in mind that when you're recording, each individual channel is recorded before the level, panning, effects, or EQ, so these won't be imprinted in the final audio file for each track. The master track is recorded as a mixdown though, so you could still get those effects and settings burned in there if you wanted. After you've taken the time to set things up just right for your live setup, you would be right in thinking that it would be difficult, or at least time consuming, to get things the exact same way that you had before from scratch every time you switch this thing on. Thankfully, the L6 has 3 scene slots that can remember the entire state of the device for you to recall instantly. Every fader position, every knob, EQ and effect value, etc. So you don't have to do this each time and can switch between a maximum of 3 setting states or templates if you will. Finally, the Zoom L6 can also record internally and play back audio from a micro SD card. Funnily enough, I remember that one of my major gripes with the L12 was that it had a 2-step recording process. You would press record to ARM, but then you had to press play for it to actually start recording. I lost many hours of audio thanks to that little quirk, because I would press record and start playing or talking in a video while not actually recording anything. Fun times. I'm pleased to report, however, that this is not the case on the L6, and that when you press record, it'll start recording immediately. No other steps necessary. So final verdict, is this the ultimate portable mixer for DAWless musicians? I'd at least say its pros far outweigh its cons, especially when considering how competitively Zoom have priced it. It's small, lightweight, battery powered, and it offers the enormous benefits of 32-bit resolution. I do still wish that it had higher gain per channel and that at least one channel offered high Z to plug in an acoustic guitar directly, but I'm nitpicking here. The L6 is a winner, whichever way you look at it, and it gets the midlife seal of approval. It's one of the best options out there if you're looking for a portable, versatile mixer that won't break the bank. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember that you can always support my channel with something as simple as just clicking the like button, subscribing, or leaving me a comment, even if it's just to say hi. I hope you found this video useful, or at least entertaining. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.